Let's find it. I gotta find it first.
Peace.
Give your time to get.
Thank you for
populate.
being patient.
Right. Get populated.
Here.
Ghost in the Shell. We're gonna do Ghost in the Shell.
Much
Here's
anticipated.
about 3-4 minutes. Let me know when you're ready.
Hey. What up, world? What up, Facebook? What up, Spreaker? What it do, though?
I'm here on Freestyle Nia.
Mr. Liddy.
Sit back and enjoy the music.
Give your time to populate.
While I enjoy this drink. Give me my words, sir.
I told y'all I'm coming back, right? How much they charge for
Matches. It's great. Complimentary.
Nah, I was looking at my FPS per second. That shit is slow. Flip.
Mirrored image. And a delay. We in the Matrix.
And the delay, very delayed. This right here, frames per second, let you know keyframe intervals should be about 3. That's why I got all these warnings up. But we online on YouTube and all the YouTube streams. I made all that. See you coming in. So you're gonna have to kind of lean into the mic. On the phone and right here. This is gonna pick up. We about to kill the music. That's a 5-minute song. Shouts out to Mr. Deity. Thank you for the soundtrack.
Shouts out to everybody being patient. I told y'all we was gonna go in about an hour ago. Glad y'all here. I know y'all was waiting anxiously, patiently. We're gonna blow the roof off tonight. We live on location. House of Cigars. I don't know the address, but it's on High Street. If you don't know exactly where,
Monte Cristo.
Monte Cristo Byzantium.
Where Byzantium used to be.
Right. If you don't know, then you probably need to get out more. Saw a little bit of Remy popping. How little Mike T do it. He do the big bottles. I'm trying to get on your level. I can't drink too much though. I don't want my words swimming. Yeah, we ain't trying to get fat girls drunk. Nothing wrong with being drunk though, man.
Not at all.
Pushing for the pushing.
Y'all got that one going too?
It better be.
Well, it show.
I have a big girl fetish like 2 months out of every year. You supposed to keep that
Are those the cold months?
You got one on deck right now.
Nah, I like it when they sweaty. Fuck it.
Like big grease.
That little oil under the tip. Shit is natural.
Okay. We only got 1 minute. Uh-oh, Mr. Vita, thank you. You gonna pilot for us tonight? You got that Giammi Journey? You got that Giammi Journey? Giammi Journey popping. We gonna kick it like this at your birthday party, Miss Navita. We'll be there.
What up, Julius?
Might even do a show.
It's working. I like it. I like confirmation.
Somebody just like
gracing the show tonight. I'm riding out the elder, the big homie. The reason I'm sitting in front of you, he would be humble and say it's because something I did, but I will always pay homage to the big homie, Elder Hatem Giami.
You just gave me a promotion.
Not quite. The young elder. The young elder.
I'm not an elder
the young
yet.
elder.
I got to be approved by the elder council. A lot of y'all don't know about that. I'm going to go get the card so we know exactly what we are, so we can tell people who we are.
He'll be right back.
That sounds like some real Matrix shit.
You know, I mean, it's real out here. You know, I definitely concur with that. We can get into that later. Let me introduce y'all first, man. My name is Quasi Lowe, coming to you live on Giame Journey. We at House of Cigars, formerly known as Monte Cristo, right here on North High Street, Columbus, Ohio. I know we're reaching people across the nation, hopefully around the world. I'm with the young elder, Hatem Giami, my mans, my cousin, my people's nephew, Neff. First.
Wait, we are at the House of Cigars on 1088 North High Street. Anybody want to come out and join us? Come on out. Well, go ahead. Don't finish.
Thank y'all for being patient. You know, we've been just sitting up here chilling for a little while, just kind of talking about, just going over what it was that we wanted to share with y'all tonight. You know, it's always deep conversation with Brother Hatem in the building. But tonight, I'm really thinking about how we are how we gonna take control of of the movement of the energy that we create, and especially in light of what's going on, politics, the economy, all of that hoopla that's going on is keeping us distracted and focused on whatever else. But ultimately, what I'm under the impression is the most important thing that we need to take hold of is the culture. You know, Hatem really impressed upon me the importance of culture, and I wanted to talk about culture from the perspective of myths and fables. It's something that Hatem does very frequently, daily actually. He talks about fables for grown folks. So I was thinking about culture. Me and my cousin here, we be having conversations.
It went to the side.
We be having conversations. I'll fix me.
I was trying to wave at him and then it flipped on me.
Forgive me, we having a little bit of technical difficulties on. We streaming live from at least like 2 or 3, maybe even 4 different
Whose camera is this?
services, streaming services, whatever you call it. But yeah, I wanted to talk about the importance of culture, man, and I think that the best way to examine culture, one of the ways that Hatem has been examining cultures over the past months and years is talking about fables and myths and how important they are to stabilizing the culture. So who better to have in the building to really flush that conversation out than the man itself, Hatem Giami. And that's a piece that we over here working on the technical difficulties. They ain't going too far. They fixing the camera. I think my main audience that I'm trying to reach right now might be seeing some distorted pictures right now. They see what y'all see. What y'all see. If you see something that's not quite working for you, you can call in. You can leave a message. You can communicate with us through several different ways. I'm right here. I got my Facebook pulled up. So anything that you want to share with us, you are a part of the conversation. So I want to hear what you got to say. But we're going to kick the conversation off talking about culture, talking about myths, and talking about fables. One of the biggest myths, fables, whatever, however you want to put it, this might actually offend some people, man. I'm not afraid to offend nobody, but it might not be exactly what a lot of people be wanting to hear when I say that one of the most important myths that we are all adhering to, what I consider a myth, maybe was a real story, maybe wasn't a real story, maybe happened, maybe didn't happen, was the story of this man, the Christ, Jesus the Christ. The whole biblical story is, by many accounts, something that may or may not have actually happened. So when we're talking about myths, understand that the power of the story is more important than whether or not it was an actual event. that is very much my theory, and that is very much something that I want to communicate. I would love to get some feedback from y'all on what you even think is a myth, whether or not some of these things that we are accepting as fact, as law, as events that actually happen, whether they're myths, whether they're real historical events that actually happen, and even if that shit really even matters, if it really happened or not. Can we even just take lessons from shit that we hear, from stories that we hear, and not get lost in whether or not it was something that really happened, whether these were real people or not? Is that a distraction? Is that important? Is that relevant? I don't know. It's a question I have. I got way more questions than answers, you know, so that's why I always turn to the people that have been here longer than myself, who've been asking these questions for more years than I have. So I'm assuming, I'm imagining, I'm actually very much certain, because I've been having conversations with people like Hatem, with people like Elder, Tony Baba West, people like, I don't know, who's some other names that some other people that...
I mean, we come from a long legacy, bro. As far as Columbus, we've been exploring this for a while. We got, you know, elders that are around you. But let's go back to your question, because Elder, when you say Baba West, you know, that knocks almost everybody else out of the picture, because he's been studying this a lot longer than I have. But you brought up an important question about whether it really matters, because a lot of people miss the power of myth because they're looking at the historical relevance. They're looking at whether it's real or not. And the thing that we have to really focus on when we're looking at the culture and we're looking at the myths that form the culture is not whether they are historically relevant, but whether or not the myth inspires a sense of mystery. Because with myth comes that sense of mystery, that sense of wonder that in this modern time a lot of us have lost. So when we start talking about it, shouts out to the God King Darrell, shouts out to Sister Navita, anybody else that's tuning in. We want to make sure we're gonna get all the names. We having problems with the iPhone over here. I don't understand the iPhone technology. But you know, you brought up a good point. Does the historical relevance really matter? When we're talking about the Christ, you asked about that Christ piece. When we're talking about the Christ piece, does the historical aspect really matter when it comes to us dealing with the whole mythic proportions of what happened with this individual? You know what I'm saying? The story is the most important, and we lose focus on the story by arguing constantly about whether or not it's real.
First, real quick, shout out to Brother Raphael in Rio de Janeiro. I see you like the video, man. Peace, bro. You my peoples, man. I miss you. I ain't seen you in a minute, man. You showed me so much love when I was out there. I'm glad you watching.
Hold on. If he on the internet right now, if he wanted to call in and talk with you, he could get on to you through, if he was to go, hold on, check 1, check 2, the lines are open. We're opening the lines right now. But he will be able to get on. Those that are international, you can get on the call through uberconference.com/Gyame Journey, GYENYAME Journey, and you'll be able to get on. So we can take international calls, which we usually on our show we usually do. I know y'all not used to seeing me sit back and chill, but the young brothers asked me out. I walked in, they planted one of these on me, they planted some drink on me, and I'm like, yo, it's a blessing that I have young people that want to kick it with me and talk, want to chop shop a little bit.
But nah, I gotta actually stop you right there, and I appreciate that, but it's a blessing for me to have access to somebody who's been in this game, who's been thinking for possibly, definitely as long as I've been alive, has been dealing with the type of issues that I've been pondering for the last 20 years, maybe even a little longer, but like in the last 20 years, I've really come into the understanding that these type of issues and these type of questions are central to my being, essential to my development. And if I'm not asking these questions, then what the fuck am I doing? And so I actually get access to somebody who's been asking these questions, and access to somebody who's been having access to people who's been asking these questions in a lineage that goes back probably before we were speaking English.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That legacy. I mean, because we come from a long line of freedom fighters, and part of the issue that we have is that we don't have people exploring the myths and the fables. You know what I'm saying? Because those are the foundation to build a culture. Any successful culture out there, you look at it, there's a myth behind it. There's fables behind it. There's legends behind it. There's heroes behind it. And that is one of the major foundations that we leave out. You know what I'm saying? And we got to, we really got to start exploring that. That's why we formed Geometry Journey, so that we can start inspiring people to start doing what you're doing, asking questions, so that we can really see where we can show, in a sense, what they say in the Bible, study to show thyself approved. How many of us really been studying these things? Looking deeply at them, looking deeply into them, and then turning around and looking into ourselves to try to get the information and be willing to share it, man. It's crazy. It's crazy.
So, one thing is, I know you're gonna hold that camera the whole time. I want you to be part of the conversation. Is it not working?
No, somehow the comments, when the comments start, is there something where you can take the comments off and then you can switch the camera? Because when I wave back, because somebody, give me some of the names on that's checking us out.
Brandy Treadwell.
Shouts out to Brandy Treadwell.
Peace, Brandy. Yo, we went to high school together, and we've been kind of bouncing off of each other a lot on Facebook. She's been saying some things, some real thought-provoking things that I've been really wanting to respond to, and she's been responding to some of the things that I've been saying, and I really respect her journey because she's asking some tough questions. She's even asking some critical questions of herself, so I really respect you, Brandy, and the mission that you on, and the journey that you on. And sometimes I feel like, even looking at your timeline, sometimes I feel like you be really, dare I say, be a little hard on yourself, and I respect that. And at the same time, I want you to know that that you don't necessarily have to be hard on yourself. I don't know. I want you to keep going on your journey. I want you to keep going on your journey. I just want you to know you're not alone. I want you to know that you're not the only person that's questioning some pieces about yourself, because that's the most important thing. And I respect you so much for doing that. And I really thank you for tuning in tonight. And I encourage you to share your thoughts, and I would like to know what you think about the conversation that we had. So I want to keep it moving. Tim, do you, I know every day you do your fables for grown folks. Did you have one for today?
No, I do that on Coogee Chocolate. Now, if I was to say the actual day, I would have to do the push-ups, so y'all got to go on and learn the language.
Tuesday.
You're right. You owe me
I haven't committed to the push. I owe you 7? I didn't even commit. I'll give y'all 7. Y'all want to watch me do 7 push-ups? It ain't enough room. I'm going to do them on the couch.
We're going to do them later.
I'll do them later.
But the whole piece is, we do that on Tuesdays. We cover one folk tale.
That's 7. We both got to 7.
I just said it?
You said Tuesday.
Oh, goddamn. Now that's 63. I got to do 63. I'm going to knock out 63 probably tomorrow during our training. But, what was the question again?
The fables.
Now, I do those on Coogee Chocolate, and basically what we try to do is let people know that the things that we're going through, the questions that we're asking, have already been asked by our ancestors. And all we got to do is start looking at some of the solutions that they came up with. And a lot of those solutions are hidden in the fables and hidden in the myths of the people. See, we got to understand that when we're talking about culture, culture is a living thing. Culture culture strives to help the people that it emerges out of to survive, because it enables people to be able to work together. So they have to answer some of those deep life questions that make it that other people that don't even deal with the questions fall off.
Power.
It's working. I had to unplug it so that we could go into it.
Well, this is our only heat in here, so I gotta plug it back in. You ain't got another plug anywhere? Well, probably do, but this is where ads are. So you unplugged it?
Yes, sir. Because it wasn't done.
Appreciate it.
So we are up here once again. We are at the House of Cigars. It's also known as the Monte Cristo at 1088 North High Street.
It is kind of cold.
Hey, but once we really get into
fire,
it's gonna bring the fire up in this.
Let's go.
You know what I'm saying? Now, but to continue on, is the culture, right? And the culture is transmitted how? Through myths, legends, and fables. And the myths, legends, and fables help us survive. It helps us to be able to solve problems, and it helps us to be able to live together and prosper.
I just had a theory about maybe why fables and myths might be even more relevant and more. It might be something that's easier to utilize in communicating these principles and situational experiences that we all deal with in an easier way than if we was to talk about our own life experiences. Because if I was to tell you about some shit I went through and to try to make a point about how I overcame or I had to deal with something or whatever it might be, and I use my own life experiences as the platform to broadcast whatever experience it was I learned, then y'all might get stuck on me. And I might even get stuck on me. I might want to brag. I might want to be like, yeah, this is how I overcame. I was a beast out here. You know what I mean? I came over. I was a beast. I had to deal with that shit. And I dealt with it. You know, you might not get the message because it might be me projecting my ego in place of the myth. I might lose the whole point of the story because I was I was up in me, or you might not want to see what it was because you might have a certain experience with me where you're like, oh, I know him. That ain't crazy. That's Ryan. You see what I'm saying? Like, you know, so.
And you get into this. Now, remember, Aesop used animals so that he could take the proverbs, take the wisdom of his people and transmit them without that personal ego piece of it. So yeah,
Google that. Aesop. How you spell it?
Aesop.
Aesop's Fables. Google it. That is mad wisdom for you right there. And it's going to talk about animals. It's going to talk about nature. It's going to highlight all of these instances, all these situations. It's not going to use no people, so you don't have to get stuck up. You don't have to get caught up on interpersonal differences. You can just see the principles.
You can see the principles. Or when you use legends and myths, which use a lot of times people, what you have to be able to do is to know how to use the myth and the legend. Just like a math equation, there's certain keys that you have to have. So you have to be able to put yourself, like if you're using the story of Jesus, you have to be able to put yourself in the place of Jesus so that you can understand and feel some of the pains. See, this is what the power of myth does, because the power of myth, legends, and fables, what it does, it allows you to kind of remove yourself as far as ego-wise and allow you to inject yourself into somebody else's struggle and be able to walk a mile in someone else's shoes. You know what I'm saying? That's what it does. You know, part of the myth issue that we're dealing with, part of the cultural issue that we're dealing with is that because we have been conquered by West Asians, we've been conquered by West Asians. Because we've been conquered by West Asians, we using the West Asian mythology to kind of define ourselves in reality. And that's a total ego-based reality.
So I'm gonna go ahead and clarify for y'all, for those of y'all that might be a little bit confused. I'm not gonna do it too much longer because it's just how I'm gonna start charging myself for push-ups every time I call somebody European or even white, because I don't adhere to those constructs. I think that when I look at a map, I see a large. Well, when I hear about the theory of continents, they are typically broke down by masses of land that are separated by bodies of water. Africa, North America, South America, even though you might call it the American Peninsula. Australia, Asia, Antarctica. I don't know if I said Asia twice. So if you look at the Asian continent, it's a large mass, but we have become familiar with calling the western portion of that landmass Europe. Why?
Because the mythology.
Because of who?
Think about it. It's the mythology. White supremacy is a mythology. And in order for white supremacy to elevate itself, they had to create a construct that didn't exist. And as long as people are buying into that construct, then they always are going to be conquered. When you can look at the map and see that there's no separation between Asia and this place called Europe, and call Europe a continent, you have basically fallen into the trap, because you're looking at reality and your mind, your ego is seeing a separate place. There is no separation between Europe and West Asia.
We even had
there's no separation between Europe and Asia, period. So when you really start calling what it is, you can see that the wool's been pulled over my eyes. You know what I'm saying? Come on now. Just like Khalid Muhammad broke down the whole concept of the Middle East. He said, if there's a Middle East, where's the Middle West? Where's the Middle South? The Middle North?
Out of Middle East,
where's the middle?
The Middle East is in Asia, but the Midwest is in the United States. Where they do that at?
Do you have the confirmation view here?
Yes.
Of what it looks like on your Facebook Live?
It's a little bit delayed, so I don't know where y'all hearing it, how y'all hearing it.
They can hear us. Don't worry about that. They can hear us.
Call in. I want to see actually where the time delay is, because I'm seeing several images.
Is it just y'all too?
Technology.
You don't worry about
like I zoomed into y'all.
Once again, don't worry about that. What we worry about is where we are. See, because right now with the toast, every morning when we do the toast, we celebrate the now. We're in the now. They'll catch up. We ain't got to worry about that. You straight.
Cheers. Plastic cup.
I wish you peace, power, joy, and 100 years.
1,000 years.
He said 1,000.
I ain't going nowhere. My DNA is out here.
So now the original thing that got me up here was that I had two younger brothers that wanted to talk to me about setting up something for young people. And then when I come in, they talk about, well, the conversation we want to have on the show tonight is about culture, myth, fables. I'm like, damn, that shit fit together. People don't even see how that. A lot of people don't even see how that shit fit together. How you gonna form and work with young people if you are not familiar with myth, fables, and legends? How you gonna build a culture in a house where individuals are able to lead a house and succeed without a myth that lets them know that success is possible? You know what I'm saying? We've been struggling here. We've been struggling here because the myth that we have is a myth that does not include us. What we have to do is start developing the myths. Like one of the things we do in Giami, we developed the myth of G. You know what I'm saying? The legend of G, right? Because one, there was no legends out here that was basically created for us. G was created directly for us. So we have young people that's coming through that's learning about this legend, that's learning about this myth, and seeing that this individual was able to do a lot of stuff. Now we got
this call is being recorded.
We got Shaka calling in. What's up, brother Shaka? Can you hear me? He can't hear us. All right, it's cool. I got you. If you tuning in, Shaka, stay on. Call back. I'm going to hang up and call back in myself. I just sent them an email about my problem as far as that. I'm not liking it. It started in 2019. I don't know whether to blame it on the Great Pumpkin.
Cash me out. We cashing you out, so cash me out. With that.
So go ahead. Huh?
It's sideways.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know what's up. That's that iPhone.
You would stretch
shit.
up long enough that you could stand the whole thing up, take it out the.
I don't go that tall.
Yeah, I work it.
And that makes it wide.
Right, he can't
You were the
catch
first
everybody.
participant on this super conference.
But focus
Please
in on
hold
him because
while
you're
we
going to
wait
be
for the
asking
others to
questions.
join.
Can you do that?
Yeah, I have been fucking.
With a sit up in here like that?
So yeah, I mean,
This call is being recorded.
I definitely,
Shaka,
I
can you hear
defer.
us?
You out there, Shaka?
You can't hear me. You can't hear us. So the phone lines is messed up.
We're gonna keep trying. Ain't gonna give up. But
Go ahead, keep on going.
I always defer to Hatem because I'm a neophyte in this, and I wear that humbly and courageously because I got a lot of questions to ask, and and I get to be in the presence of great men that also
This call is
still, after being in this game of question asking for.
What's up, Shaka?
Hey.
Hey.
What's going on?
Hey, who's this?
We
Who's
got
all on the? I see y'all two sitting there. Who all on the line?
me, Quasi, what's your cousin's name?
Neff.
And Neff. We sitting up at the Monte Cristo cigar shop.
House of Cigars.
House of Cigars. just
Name
chilling.
change. We ain't trying to get sued.
Oh, okay. We ain't trying. Okay. I ain't got no money.
I got 35 cents. Y'all can have it. I need that shit. I was about to go to the candy store, not the strip club. Well, maybe both.
Would you go throw nickels at the strippers? That was good. I got a quarter.
Especially if they fat, it might stick.
You know the thing is too. Like, hey, I just wanted to reintroduce this because I don't think Quasi was around when I was talking about it a lot. Quasi, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
So I'm on, sometimes every day actually, I find time to go live on Tag. It used to be just a dating network, but I go on there because it's worldwide, and everybody, when they agree with what I'm saying, they shoot me gifts, and those gifts turn into diamonds. Those diamonds turn into money that you can get cashed out. I heard you say, cash me out. And that's usually what I hear on Tag when they get 80,000 diamonds. They like, yo, that's $200 on my card right now, wherever I'm at. I can use that. So, FYI, that shit is real. And if you wanted to expand on, you know what I mean, putting your device online and being able to, monetize, that's a slick way. And I'm saying I'm directing this to you because you're younger, and Tag is filled with, folks your age that'll probably listen to you before they listen to me or Hatem. So,
what you saying? Oh man, Spreaker froze on me. All right, we're gonna use the sound effect. Damn, he killed the camera. We falling and we can't
who
get
did
up.
me?
We live.
We falling and we can't get up. Oh goddamn.
We live. That's happened sometimes.
So-
That's how you know it's real. It's like stretch marks.
So I hear where y'all at on the myth piece, and I made some time today. I watched one movie, and it caused me to sit down with my son and watch another movie. The movie that I watched that is an excellent piece for us to talk about is Glass.
Yeah, I was thinking about going to see Glass, and this is a whole. For those who don't know, his name is K.M. Shyamalan or something like that.
M. Night Shyamalan?
M. Night Shyamalan, right? And he developed a whole universe based on heroes that are made realistic. Well, they're more realistic than Marvel or DC. And he got this whole universe. If you don't know Glass, the first movie he did was Unbreakable. Second one was Split. And the third one in this series is called Glass. And excellent myth making movie. There's a whole lot of myth-making movies that we could discuss, because we got to understand. Everybody understands myth-making. I ain't gonna say everybody, but we need to really understand myth-making and storytelling so that we can move, so we can take this movement to the next level. Go ahead, Shaka. Hit it up. Hit them up, man.
All right, so while you on that one, let me back up for a second, because I do have to make this. There was another director. Oh, man. He's the one that did the show Touch and Heroes. And for the past decade, Heroes and Touch have both been two of my favorite shows, and here's why. I watched them while they were in syndication, and there were a lot of messages in those episodes that on a week-by-week basis, I was able to apply in my real life, in my true-to-life struggles, in my true-to-life battles, right? And so there's a whole bunch of Eastern, like the Proverbs that they run. You just got to check it out. But getting back to Glass, there was a statement that was made in Glass that, to me, made all the sense in the world. And without going into it, without telling the story, you know how in every single hero story there's like a government agency trying to take down people who have, just like in the mutant world, they're trying to take down the mutants because they're more powerful. And a whole piece that it made sense to me is when an individual from this said secret society said, hey, we're not some evil society that just wants to find a villain to kill him. We want to get rid of all of y'all because the world is not, we're not ready for God to walk the world. And when she said that, and when they said that, it was just a thing where everything, to me, started making sense across the board. Is that if you believe that you are God and you keep saying we are God, then there are people out there, it's not that they're not prepared for you. They're just not prepared for that because they, in their own walk, have not developed that connectedness. Does that make sense?
Yeah, now, and that is a result of what the question that Quasi is asking is about the myth. Because what people do is, rather than listening to the myth and applying the myth, they submit themselves to the myth. And they become parasite carriers for the wrong message within the myth. And they humble themselves totally to the myth without question. And that causes that mind state that says, I could never do this. I could never do a miracle. I could never change a life. And when me and you, in our small experience, we have seen people able to do that shit. We have seen people do miracles. You know what I'm saying? We experienced that shit.
And
so
the whole purpose for those organizations is to make our super shit look mundane.
Right. Or
you know what I mean? Oh, well, I've
erasing.
seen people do that before.
Or erasing.
Go ahead.
All right, real quick.
Yeah.
On my Facebook Live, peoples, on the Quasi little account that's watching, you might get a little interruption. The show is still going on other streams. I'm about to switch sources, so you might get a couple minutes down or a couple minutes downtime, but we're coming back right at you. Peace.
You have to click on. You have to click on a new one.
You have to click on a new one. Yeah, click on a new one. Here we coming right back at you.
Hey, so I was trapped in this thought all day. And my son wanted to sit down and watch the movie. I said, you know what, we watching The Matrix. And we sat down and watched The Matrix, and the fact that The Matrix is written at a place where he can understand what, the myth that's being told, right? And there was a part of that movie, in regard to what you're talking about right now. And it's when you start believing. See, because before Neo believed that he was the one, it wasn't the case. but only when he started believing, like, hey, people have sacrificed for me to get to this point right now. Morpheus sacrificed his own life for mine because he believes that I'm the one. Yo, I gotta step up to the plate. And it was the part where they was back in the real world, and he was still in the Matrix, and he was like, well, what is he doing? And Morpheus was like, he's starting to believe. And that's when he started doing all the fantastic stuff, dodging bullets and, you know what I mean, on a grander level. Because he believes in it. And that's always been my message. Belief is what empowers everything.
Belief and what empowers the currency that people are using in their pockets right now. Belief. Right? So I'm with you, but we got something from, well, Shaka says, explain the Asiatic black man. I'm going to just say, the Asiatic black man is the black man that originally arose up out of Africa and traveled throughout the world. I'm just saying that. You know what I'm saying? It's the black man that got up and left Africa and went into the continent of Asia. I'm just saying. You know what I'm saying? Because a lot of people, I mean, but what we start arguing about is whether it's the Asiatic black man or the, when humanity, when we were born or created, or however you want to say it, when the black man evolved or whatever, created or whatever, it was the black man. And he went everywhere. Why? Because we have a need to travel. We have a need to expand. Because it's part of the myth. You know what I'm saying? I mean, we seek mystery. That's what myth is about. It's about the mystery. And a lot of people, when they lose that, being able to create, that's what musicians create. Musicians create mystery. When you look at a motherfucker like Shaka that can sit down at a keyboard and come up with a song in 10 minutes, or you look at an Eddie Bear who can take a saxophone and do some incredible shit with it. It's a magic, it's a mystery to it. And the only mystery is hard work. A lot of people want to deny that shit. It's hard work. Shaka learned how to play, and he's been practicing for years. And that mastery came from the fact of what? That this man dedicated the time to a craft. To a craft. You know what I'm saying? And we look at other people, we are amazed, but it's nothing but individuals dedicating themselves to a craft. Now, Shaka, you still online?
Yep.
So now I'm gonna go see. I'm gonna see the movie. I'm gonna go see the movie Glass. But also for those that want to see what M.K. Shyamalan also did, another fantastic movie he did that you could only see once. And this was a dope ass concept when he did the movie with Bruce Willis and I See Dead People. The little boy was talking about I See Dead People. What's that?
That's his movie too, The Sixth Sense.
The Sixth Sense was might have been his breakthrough movie. Because I want y'all to understand, the reason you got to see it so that you can understand why it's a movie you can only see one time. Because, you know what I'm saying?
Second time sucked.
Right. Because The Matrix was the same type of movie. Because these are myth movies where once the secret is revealed to you, it fucks it up for you, and you can't really go see it without letting motherfuckers know. Well, you know, if they haven't seen it, you try to talk them through it until they.
Well, I hear what you're saying, Tim, but let me just say this: Unbreakable. What I discovered today by watching the other one, Unbreakable is 20 years old.
19.
And
19 years old.
Unbreakable.
It's only 19. It's 19 years old.
I'm trying to age the movie.
Okay. It's all right, but if Unbreakable is 19 years old, then that means that The Sixth Sense is at least 25 years old.
Exactly.
And
Damn,
I just
for real?
Yeah.
Hell no, I wasn't 10.
Y'all was 10.
I wasn't 10.
Y'all was babies when that shit came out.
I wasn't the baby. I was drinking. I mean,
well, you might have been a drinking baby.
I might have been a drinking baby. Keep going.
Hey, Quasi, just look it up. Like,
my drinking
one of us
history?
can look it up. But
Look, my word just landed already. I guess
But what I'm saying is that, like, after 20-something years, if they haven't seen it yet, I mean, how long we going to wait to have a real discussion about it?
Well, now, we have to admit, in our tribe, we're not waiting. in our tribe, we're doing the work to get to that. And that's the peace. That's what we're working towards. Because the whole piece is, we got to see, because my piece is, one, not losing the wonder of the universe. You know what I'm saying? Not losing that wonder and not losing that connection to the universe to where we start trying to deconstruct it and destroy it.
I mean, because you brought it up, and now my mind is interfaced. It's like, all right, so without going into the dynamics of the story, how do we know? How do we know that we're still amongst the living?
Hey, damn, Shaka.
God damn.
God, you know,
We
now,
weren't trying to get that deep, bro.
Hey, man, I'm still
Fuck it,
busting
you
nuts
did
and
it
going
now.
shopping and shit. Tell me I'm dead. Not yet.
no, but that's what that
Busting
movie,
dead
that
nuts.
movie was about. You know what I'm saying? How do you know? Because the whole movie, well, I ain't gonna ruin it for those that ain't seen it, because some of y'all,
You should
Everybody
have seen that shit by now. Ruin it.
Fuck that.
it came out in 1999. How many years ago was 1999?
Damn, that was
20 years.
20 years ago. So I was.
And
We
then
wasn't
after
out
that,
here
he
when
did
16.
Unbreakable, which I really didn't like.
I ain't never seen that.
I didn't like
I
Unbreakable.
didn't either.
Call me
I
Mr.
didn't like
Glass.
right.
Because it was only part of a story. But now,
No, but
with
hold
all
on.
three of them, I got to go back to Unbreakable.
Now, and that's the brilliance of the myth. See, because when you go back and you look at it, see, because I don't have to go back and look at it because I remember the movie because I didn't like it. But what they did, they developed a universe out of that, because in 2017, the Split came out. And then at the end of the movie, they connected it to that movie. You know,
Right.
Myth building is a never-ending process. Like when brothers ask me about, they say, well, what about G? You know what I'm saying? They say, what about G? What about the history? I say, well, the history will be written when you write it. You know what I'm saying? I'm trying to inspire motherfuckers. Listen,
Well,
we got to create the myth.
Yeah, I mean, in the same way that we have to own our own reality, our own narrative, the same thing goes with our myth. For example,
Myth is a narrative.
you heard of the deity Shango, no?
Hey, that's me.
I heard of Shango.
Okay.
Troublemaker. Fuck. But go ahead.
So dig this. Did you know that in the late 60s, early 70s, Shango was a Marvel character
He's
and
a bad
a DC
motherfucker.
character? Check this out. Shango was snatched out of the Marvel universe because they was telling some real shit. He wasn't a made-up character. So you know what they did? They replaced him with Thor.
But Thor is not made up either.
And
See, we got to understand.
he's not.
You got
But
to,
he is.
you
But
got
he
to
is
understand
closer
that.
to their.
Closer
He's
to their
closer
what?
to their myth.
Exactly.
I just want to say that this
See,
is exactly why I wanted Hatem to be a part of the conversation. Not just because he would bring Shaka into the conversation, but because they gonna teach me some shit.
Shaka, what do we do to teach our kids? We'll be like, give me something to do. I'm an action person.
All
What
right.
do we do? What
All
do you
right.
want me to do?
Check it out. Do you rap?
No.
Well, do you write stories?
No.
Okay.
I'm
How
an
you gonna-
everyday regular dude, and my
All right.
demographic
Nah,
is
he's
old.
not an everyday regular dude.
See that
This motherfucker right here is a superhero. He's a humble ass dude. But I know this cat. He done lived a dope ass life, and he is a story. His life is
That's
a
what I'm
story.
saying. See, because if we want to reach our kids, we got to change the stories that we tell them. We got to be able to come up with scenarios where we could tell the stories so that they be like, damn, I could change. You see what I'm saying? Because like I said, when you look at culture, the myths in the culture lets the people know what they can achieve and what they can what they can move. You understand what I'm saying?
So my
Right.
heroes, if I'm gonna talk to my kids, if I'm gonna go home tomorrow morning and tell my kid about a superhero, I'm gonna talk about Malcolm X.
Now, but hold on. This is what's important. You know who your child's hero is?
My childhood hero?
Yeah. No, not your child. Who's your child hero?
Oh, me.
Exactly. Your child need to hear about you, your struggles, and people that they know, so that when they go around them, see, because what we got to understand, like, when we start isolating myth and separating it so far from our children that they could never run into a motherfucker that could possibly do that shit, it isolates them and it leaves them in a place where, damn, I can't accomplish that because I never experienced that, I never seen that. Your children need to hear about your life, hear about your struggles, hear about other motherfuckers that you look up to that you know. You know what I'm saying? Like my oldest son's godfather is Normal X. You know what I'm saying? Because I didn't pick a godfather when he was born. When he was old enough, I said, listen, when I was going and doing all the stuff I was doing, I said, look, Nomo is your godfather. This is a live, living hero in Columbus right now. And if he was able to do that, and this is your godfather, and he accepts you, then you have no excuse not to achieve great things. You know what I'm saying? And for our people. So, and then on top of that, we got to look at some of these myths that they're telling our children and understand that some of the heroes that they want to put up in front of our children are total selfish beings. Not saying that, because you said Malcolm X. Malcolm X is an excellent example, but do you have somebody in your life, because you are old enough to have somebody in your life that actually experienced Malcolm X when he was alive? See, we remove ourselves. We remove ourselves. Like Jesus, the problem with Jesus for me is that we remove Jesus so far from our children that they like, I can't do that shit.
Right.
When I done had motherfuckers in my life turn water to wine.
And that's the crazy thing, is that's kind of how, like, even in my family, it's I was about to say almost, but it is literally blasphemy for me to compare myself to Jesus. Within the myths of the family story that I've been taught. Within the stories that I've been taught from my family, it's literally blasphemy for me to compare myself to Jesus. But then I have to understand that that's a lineage that I didn't create. My family didn't create. You see what I'm saying? Because Jesus was a special person. But so when I think about Jesus and the story of Jesus, it's two undeniable possibilities. Either Jesus was born with the knowledge that he was the Son of God in a way that was separate from any other human being, and he was just special. He was not regular human. He was something special. And if he knew that from the time he was born, then what Jesus did wasn't necessarily that special, because he knew from the time he was born that he was something different. Everybody else was different. He was Jesus. He had a mission. He had something to do from the time he was born. He knew it. Even in that, like as a baby, when I was a baby, I didn't know shit. I learned how to walk. I learned how to crawl. So even in that, Jesus had to be born knowing how to walk. Jesus came out sea walking. You see what I'm saying? Like Jesus knew all of that shit. But then the other narrative is
walking on water.
sea walking on water. You know what I'm saying? But the other story is that Jesus was just like me. He didn't know shit. He didn't know he was special. He figured it out one day. So if that's the story, then what's different from me?
Absolutely nothing. But then that is the crux of the problem. That is the problem right there. If you can feel that you can do what Jesus could do, then nigga, I can't turn you into a slave. If you feel you can do what Shango did, I can't turn you into a slave. I can't have you doing this shit that's going on in the society right now. You can't raise a family. You can't do the shit that you do right now if you believe that. So, in order for this society to work, I got to erase all possibilities of you being other than a slave. You know what I'm saying? How am I gonna oppress you if you believe that that this man called Jesus came into a knowledge that was beyond what other people had, and he started out like you? Fuck that, I can't have you believe that shit. So Jesus came here believing that shit, and you just be a slave and be happy about that shit. Nigga, here, let me give you.
I mean, and the other piece is that, like, we, just like you say, you know people who have experienced Malcolm X in their life. Well, that is what makes Jesus valid in my own, is because I was brought into the spirit by my grandmother. At the age of 4, she taught me to read from the Bible.
Age of 4?
At 5 o'clock in the morning, every single morning. That was the golden time.
Did you say age of 4?
And ever since then, I've been trying to get back to that. But the piece is that, like, when people are like, yo, you know, Jesus ain't real and blah, they skip, here's the piece that is real. What's real is that my grandmother single-handedly raised all of her kids, 8 of them, and 25 grandkids by herself, for the most part. And when it comes down to the power within her, she always leaned on Jesus. So when I look at the miraculous things that was done through my grandmother, with the power of belief and her love for Jesus, I mean, put it like this. When I got back here to Cleveland, I came back with a different set of beliefs. And my grandmother and I, we were able to talk it out. She said, what do you call God? And I said, the Most High. She said, you're right, because Jesus is the Most High. And we just let it be as that. Because everybody who has a parent, you can have as many siblings as you want, and all of y'all got different relationships with that parent. And y'all might even call them something different. And at the end of the day, as long as they serve the purpose that they're supposed to, you know, serve for you, that's the whole point. So if there is no heavenly connection, whatever it is that you call that connection, whatever it is that you call that connection with the highest source in the universe, the one that makes sure that the sun stays on kilter, the one that makes sure that the planets stay in orbit, because there is an energy that does that, which is undeniable. So whatever you call that, if you're not connected with it, that's the issue. And the whole point of life is getting connected.
Now, that goes back to the point that I said that all spirituality is about relationship. You know, motherfuckers try to get deep with this whole spiritual aspect, but the simplicity of the spirituality is about relationships. Your relationships to God, your relationship to the ancestors, your relationship to the people around you. You can tell how spiritual somebody is by how prosperous their relationships are. And we won't define prosperous by the amount of money that's involved in a relationship. We'll divide prosperous by what is developed from those relationships and what can be built from those relationships.
That kind of puts in mind for me like something I've been wrestling with. Really, I don't know. I can't even exactly pinpoint how long I've been wrestling with it, but something that I used to say, you know, because I grew up in a Christian church. I was raised in the church.
Most of us were.
And until I think around the age of 12, I said I'm not going to church ever again. I'm never stepping foot in the fucking church ever again in my life. I've been back to churches, but you know that wasn't. But I definitely did. At that point, I determined for myself that culture didn't work for me. So at that point, I decided that I wasn't adhering. I was willing to take all of the trouble, all of the whoopings, all of the yellings and punishment. I was standing on what I was. I was no longer religious, and in that period of time, I moved past my fear of going to hell and burning in eternal hellfire. I gave that shit up. It was no longer. I can't say it was no longer at that moment. I began to wrestle with the concept of me having the fate of burning in eternal hellfire because I didn't believe some predetermined outcome or predetermined philosophy of what my place in the universe was.
Shaka believe in heaven and hell? Shaka.
Say that again?
Do you believe in heaven and hell?
I believe we're experiencing both right now.
Oh, I forgot about him. Shit, he thinks we're dead already. Ain't that a bitch?
What is life? What is death, man? It's all like if they say that energy can either be destroyed or created, then what is heaven and hell? You know, What is damn, I can't. What is that saying that people say? What is
No, even if it wasn't a post-mortem notion, what I'm saying is that when our energy, when we, which is energy, changes, there is no time and space in the matter. I feel like if there is a heaven and a hell, we are all experiencing it all at the same time.
based
Like
off
for
of what we
example,
choose, right?
if you were in a house fire and you were burnt up crispy, your hell is gonna be different than somebody who's never suffered that.
Yeah.
But that go back to your movie that you brought up, because the beast will only eat the flesh of people who have never suffered, and he would deem them unworthy to live.
Damn.
I mean,
Damn.
what there in that movie?
Yeah. You're right.
If you didn't suffer,
You're right.
if you look at Split, you look at that movie, the whole concept of him was that he needed to eat flesh of people who did not suffer. You know what I'm saying?
I mean, yeah.
I don't know how
And
many
in
people.
some cases,
How many people out there is hip to Nature Boy, Eligio Bishop? He got a face. I just try to see. He got hella fucking followers. He apparently moved out of the United States and is living in Nicaragua or like some South or Central American country. And he says a lot of stuff, man. He says a lot of provocative stuff. And I have been really inspired by him over the past maybe year now that I've been kind of paying attention to what he had to say. And a lot of stuff I agree with. A lot of stuff I think is profound, and it progresses my thought process. One of the things that he said is your body is your soul. Your soul is indistinguishable from your body. He said that my body, he said that a soul can't exist without a body. And that shit made so much sense to me, because a body is basically a factory that makes possible the five senses: hearing, seeing, smelling, touching, and tasting. And those are the five ways. And then you got the sixth sense, M. Night Shyamalan. Shout out, watch my video, motherfucker. But that is the way that we experience this thing that we call reality, is these five senses. And without those five senses, how can you even claim to be experiencing anything unless you're experiencing it? Experience is that which we can say that we are participating in this thing we call reality. Consciousness. You see what I'm saying? So,
but is it consciousness without relationship?
How can we have relationships without experiencing them?
You know what's so funny about it? We having the same conversation. You bring up the same point, Quasi, that I just heard them not arguing, but kind of enlightening on the Matrix. When the young boy Mouse was like, they were sitting down eating the slop, and he was like, it tastes like Tasty Wheat. You ever taste Tasty Wheat? He's like, I don't know.
It tastes like
He
chicken.
was like, how do you know it tastes like Tasty Wheat? He's like, that's the whole point. How does the computer know that what Tasty Wheat tastes like, right? He was like, and that's why I think that, everything in it, how does it know what chicken tastes like? Or even if it doesn't know what chicken tastes like, which is why everything tastes like chicken. So you look at the whole, the parallel, and what's being said is that, how do you know that when you say a certain word, it means the same to everybody?
Exactly.
And that's the whole piece about Babel, is that it doesn't.
Now, but this is the issue. In culture, when you form in cultures, you define the words that people speak so that there is a commonality in that. You understand what I'm saying? It's like culture enables us to be able to communicate because it brings up the similarities between those that belong in the culture and those that do not. In Gianni, right now, I can have a conversation with Quasi just on the shit that he knows, that it will be a conversation between us and nobody else will understand what the fuck we talking about. You understand what I'm saying? When you form a culture, the culture helps define those words. But when you on an individual, when you get into this individual shit, that this mythology that we are in promotes. This new mythology that we are in, and is the youngest mythology on this motherfucker planet about the rugged individual. It enables motherfuckers to not have to understand. I don't have to understand you. You know what I'm saying? You on my platform, I can cut you off. This is why I tell people, listen, this is why on Giammi Journey, you know what I'm saying? Motherfuckers talk, and rarely do I put a motherfucker off the line. You know what I'm saying? I will put a motherfucker off the line.
And I mean, you think about the thousands of the ancient tongues that come out of Africa. Imagine all the hybrid ones that come out today. So, you know, we caught on to Kiswahili, the trade language, right? But who's to say that right now there isn't Creoles being established in all African countries that are just for them? You follow me?
Right.
Or even over here, like in my household, my son and I didn't realize this until recently, because I don't spend a lot of time out in public too much, but I didn't realize that me and my son speak a Creole. Because sometimes I'll speak, you know, Ago Ame. Sometimes I'll say En La Catch. Sometimes I'll speak Spanish to him. Right? And somebody who heard this, who started picking up on those tongues, and even a little bit of Haitian Creole, you know what I mean? He understands these. So if I ask him Kita, he'll tell me what he wants. You know what I mean? And so it's one of those things where if our tribe were intentional about creating that, then just like a tribe right now in Columbus, you might not find other tribes as developed who speak the language. But you go to North Carolina, you come to Cleveland, and you'll find them, and it's just like, what makes their tribe different than mine now? Does it ever feel that way, Hatem?
Now, I have ran into individuals in different places and different countries that belong to my tribe. You know what I'm saying? And it's like we feel a common way, but I can say a word. See, because the issue of this rugged individualism is like we could create shit, and in creating shit, a lot of times we leave other people out of what we're creating. You know what I'm saying? That's, you know, because like I said, this is why I'm saying circle of the wagons. And we have to have shit that are particular, unfortunately, particular to the land that we are on, or where we are. Those that are in close proximity, because you can say in the catch, and I can understand what the common definition of it means, but I'm not really in the family relationship between you and your child. And you could be saying something like, you came to my house and you said you started speaking to him in Spanish one time. I'm like, you know, I did not necessarily know the words, but I saw the effect of the language. You understand what I'm saying? So, you know, so I couldn't repeat what I wanted in Spanish for him to do, but I could repeat in our language what I wanted him to do. And the piece that I'm saying is that language and the myths that go with that language, and the folk tales, as Kwesi like to bring up, that go with that language, that help us get a common definition. Because a lot of times we speaking and we don't have a common definition. People, for a long time, people didn't understand. Like I broke down when we was having the heavy discussion last week about white supremacy. A lot of people don't understand that lingo, but individuals that are involved in it do, because they have invested in it. See, when you have a culture, individuals have to invest in that culture. You know what I'm saying? And what we have is people not really being willing to invest in our culture.
I think one of the biggest problems with people investing in the culture, it's kind of a gift and a curse, I think, that my people kind of have, is on the gift side, we take control of the language. we can come up with a new way to say, a new way to express an idea every week. You know, the culture within the black community is constantly changing, it's constantly evolving, it's constantly adapting, and I think that's beautiful. I think that shit is dope as fuck. But at the same time, I think one of the detriments of that is that we can have difficulty sharing common ideas. You know, I think one of the important things is being accurate. One of the sacrifices that we have in our slang, one of the sacrifices that we have in our pizzazz and our flavor is that sometimes we might sacrifice the critical meaning that we're trying to express to each other. So I think it's important that we really get down to the central ideas that we are attempting to communicate to each other, because ultimately the word, like when we play with these word slangs, that shit is fun, that shit is dope, and then we keep people off us, and we keep the situation to where we can communicate with each other, and people can't necessarily keep up with us, and that shit is valuable. But at the same time, if we can't keep up with each other, then what the fuck is we doing? You see what I'm saying? So we need to see.
I do. And Quasi, my bad.
No, go.
So just imagine this though. In human sociology, what we're dealing with is in communication. 80% of communication is body language.
Word.
Only 5% of it is the words that we use.
Well, what's the other 15%?
And I would attribute the rest of that to eye contact.
Ooh.
So what we lose in this digital age a lot of times is real understanding, because we're not making eye contact, because we're not paying attention to each other's body language.
Damn.
You understand? So a lot of things can be misconstrued and, going left for no reason at all. You know what I mean? So I just want to say that because, it happens. You know what I mean? So, but when we talking about communication, I don't know. I guess that's the only point that I needed to make. I need to run on with it.
Nah, that's dope though, because that's something that I really find of a lot of value, and something, because it's so linked. Like you ever heard, like, so they say if you smile, then you feel better about yourself, right? Or when you feel better about yourself, you smile. Which is it? Which one comes first? So I remember me and my cuz, man, me and Neff, we was just talking before we came on air. We was talking about our histories, our past, and how we kind of overcame some of the shit that we was dealing with. We had a pretty deep conversation, man, a pretty dope conversation about just about us, about some of the experiences that we had to deal with. And one of the things that we was talking about is some of the stuff that we overcame and how we did it. And I was thinking about how in the past couple of years, man, I came out of a funk that I was in from some of my experiences that was beautiful, and I didn't capitalize on them in a way that I thought at the moment that I could and I should. So I ended up being down on myself. And one of the ways that I rebounded from that was realizing that I had so many more opportunities at hand because of the failures that I experienced. So one of the ways that I looked at it was like, okay, so now I'm thinking, which comes first? The failure, the experience, the lesson, or the way that I move forward off of the lesson? And I don't know if that makes sense, so I'm going to bring it home by saying one of the ways that I feel a lot more confident right now than I might have felt a couple years ago because of some of the things that I felt that I failed on. I looked myself in the mirror, and I made myself smile at myself. I didn't want to, but I smiled at myself. And I swear to you, from that moment, I started moving up. I don't remember the date, but I know that I looked at myself in the mirror and I smiled, even though I didn't want to, and I started building. And from that day, my confidence began to grow. So what is it? That I smiled because I was happy, or was I happy because I smiled? What you think about that, Shaka?
Well, I mean, what I do know at this point is that your smile is more healing to others than you know.
Whoa.
Just like laughter.
And vice versa. So when I make others feel happy, then that makes me feel like my purpose is being served, right? So that goes back to the whole concept. Real quick, that just goes back to the whole concept of my life isn't mine. My life is ours.
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying? So when people be on that bridge...
Here's the thing. Like, Quincy, if you tell a story and it makes people smile, then they have retained that story. And that smile is your receipt.
Ooh.
And here's the thing that you got to understand. What's that?
Nah, go ahead.
So what happens is that, I mean, and this is why I'm so big on emotional intelligence, is because when I'm in a classroom setting, I tell people my experiences, and sometimes I might get emotional. I might get caught up in a moment. You know, when I talk about my estrangement from my daughter, sometimes it still stings when I sing the songs that I wrote with that in mind. You know what I mean? When I sing Man Down, it still stings the fact that I wrote that song to let people know that I'm in a state of emergency, but the fact that they're just sitting there waving their hands like enjoying the song, I didn't know how to take that for some time. I had to realize that this is one of those songs that they won't get unless you tell them the story beforehand.
Hey, and I think
so that's when I started.
And I think that that reminds me of an idea I had when you were talking about how to define heroism to my kids, journalizing. Like how many things have I gone through or have I experienced, even minute experiences throughout the day that I didn't really write down or document. You know, now that we all got cameras.
Go
ahead.
I gotta say this. I gotta say this right now. Just yesterday, I was feeling some kind of way because my son is in second grade, and I feel personally that he should be reading a lot more fluent than he is. And really, I started feeling a little bit like I need to be paying attention a little bit more to that. Like, I need to bring him books every day so that we can read together.
Yeah.
And so, in the heat of it all, I sat him down at his desk. I said, man, sit down. You got to read something. Right now is your 20-minute reading time today. So whether you pick up the Bible or whatever, I need you to pick it up, and I need you to read it. So I picked up this little wooden case that's sitting next to him because he said, nah, I'm straight on the Bible. He didn't want to read the Bible yesterday.
You know, Quasi's father made him read Frederick Douglass when he was a kid.
Damn.
Is that right?
That you remember that.
Hey, so check this out. I mean, because this is something that you ever heard the poem Footprint?
What is it?
The poem Footprint.
No. Talk about it.
Check this out. So I have this poem. I have this poem sitting on my son's desk. It's a beautiful picture of a beach with one set of footprints, right? And I thought I'd share it because when I was reading it to my son yesterday, it affected me more than it affected my son. And I'm reading over his shoulders, and all of a sudden, like, tears start falling out my eyes, and I don't know why. I don't know why. I didn't know why. I was so overwhelmed when I was reading this, but it's like a 60-second read, so I wanted to share it with y'all. And it goes like this. One night, and we read this together, and I'm telling you, man, it just affected me in that way. So here we go. One night, a man had a dream. He dreamed he was walking along the beach with the Lord. Across the sky flashed scenes from his life. For each scene, he had noticed two sets of footprints in the sand. One belonged to him, and the other one to the Lord. When the last scene of his life flashed before him, he looked back at the footprints in the sand. He noticed that many times along the path of his life, there was only one set of footprints here.
Right.
He also noticed that it happened at the very lowest and saddest times of his life. This really bothered him, And he questioned the Lord about it. Lord, you said that once I decided to follow you, you'd walk with me all the way. But I've noticed that during the most troublesome times of my life, there is only one set of footprints. I don't understand why when I needed you the most, you would leave me. And the Lord replied, my precious, precious child, I love you, and I would never leave you. During your times of trial and suffering, when you see only one set of footprints, it was then that I carried you.
Absolutely.
You heard that on the DMX album.
Right? DMX. You heard that story too.
I'm down with crackhead pastors.
Did DMX say that?
DMX.
He read that story.
Sorry, the dark man. Don't hurt
Oh,
me.
okay.
Don't hurt
It's
me.
called
Don't hurt
footprint.
me.
Yeah, I heard that. We know that from that. That's how we know
It
it.
was then I carried you, my son.
We 80s babies. That's how we remember that one.
Damn, they 80s babies. God damn.
Yo, shout out to Edward Lewis, man. He said that the smile is a physical expression of. I was trying to retain it. I didn't remember it in any sense, but it's the physical expression, man. The smile is the physical. I probably gonna fuck up because
Don't worry about it.
Cuz told me not to assume. Like, we on the A. I'm gonna send a shout out right now to the deceased Napoleon Hill for Outwitting the Devil. Pick that book up and be accurate. I'm about to say some inaccurate shit because I don't know if I'm gonna exactly quote my cousin right. Paco, Edward Lewis Jr. on Facebook. Fuck with him. That man is a beast. He's brilliant. He's a genius. He said that the smile is a physical expression of the internal experiences. I'm completing sentences because I'm still figuring this whole thing out. Yo, shout out to my first Facebook Live. I might have done another one. I think I was like kayaking down Alum Creek or something like that. So I didn't have a lot of time. It wasn't this in-depth of a conversation, so I'm still figuring the system out. So I was trying to read his comment, but he was saying something about the smile being a physical expression. I'm assuming that he was saying the physical expression of internal state. If you listening, if you still on, and you want to correct what I was saying, yo, call in 614-556-4535. I would love to hear what you got to say. And if I'm expressing what your thought was inaccurately, please correct me. But I think he was trying to say that what's going on internally is automatically going to come out. They said it was said by a wise man. I don't know who exactly it was, but there's no way. I'm not even going to try to quote it. There's no way to hide what's going on internally. Everything that we're thinking and feeling is going to come out in some expression. It's going to come out on our face. It's going to come out in our body language. Right. If you're sitting there with your arms folded and your legs crossed, that's saying something. If you're sitting there exposing your chest. I remember I was watching this video, man. It was George Bush sitting there with, I think it was Miguel Gorbachev or something. They just overthrew some. They just beat somebody's ass. Strong ass military that we fund with all these taxes, and we broke his fucking government shut down. They beat somebody's ass. George Bush was sitting there, he was just chilling, his dick was out, he was posted like this. And the dude whose ass got his whip, who got his ass whipped was sitting there. You can't see me, I'm covering my Johnson. That's how he was sitting, because he didn't feel like a man. He couldn't hide it. You see what I'm saying? Your expressions is going to come out, no matter what you're feeling. So it's a two-way cycle. So I might be feeling unconfident. I might not be feeling very confident. But if I sit there with my chest poked out, people going to notice. Right. And then I'm going to notice that they notice. So I'm going to feel more confident. So I'm going to stick my shit out even farther. I may even put my dick in the screen. You see what I'm saying? Because that's how I'm feeling. I'm feeling like my nuts is on the shit. Harambe, you see what I'm saying? Harambe. Not the gorilla.
Not the gorilla?
I fucks with him.
Rest in peace, Harambe.
Damn, how they do
Killed
my
by a
like
black child, goddammit. Take his ass out.
Damn, we be getting all the way off topic, and I love it.
I mean, that's how we do it. That's how we do it. That's how we do it. You know what
Yo,
I'm saying?
shout out to everybody on the line, man. Like 556 614, of course, the area code 614-556-4535. 4535 556-4535. We
Hey,
would love
so-
to hear what you got to say.
So Shaka, answer the question. What do you think about journalizing, man?
Shit, journaling.
What do I think about
Journaling is
Journalism?
very important. No,
Journalizing.
journaling, writing, diaries, writing down your personal
Oh.
experiences.
Well, who asked that?
Well, I said that I thought that might be a way for me to explain heroism to my kids and show how,
Oh, yeah.
heroic we are.
And it takes a lot of courage to write anyway.
Listen. Understand this. The last 16 years of my life has been about writing all the lessons to my children that in life I may not have the opportunity to tell them face to face. I had been estranged from my daughter for 16 years, and I understand where a young girl can go in life and what she would be subjected to if not understanding the protection of her father.
How old is your
So,
daughter now?
for the past, go ahead,
How old is she?
20.
I sent all my.
So I got a 20-year-old daughter
I understand, bro.
who I've been writing for. Every song that I've written in the past 15 years has been a lesson for her to understand her father's heart.
That's powerful. I appreciate that.
And so the piece is that if I didn't write that, and if I didn't leave it to this world, when I'm finally gone, I don't exist in her life. So those writings are the legacy that I leave my kids to flourish through. The product that, in terms of intellectual property, that will help them in terms of the physical world to be able to make, or the economic world, to be able to make things happen.
And it's the same
spiritually,
reason we do this.
I feel like, it does a great deal for their confidence, knowing that you do have somebody in your life that loves you, who spent their whole life writing this down so that you would be able to flourish. On a grander scale outside of my own writing, I believe that if you don't write it down, it never happened. So in the state of movement, that's why it's so important for the artist to move first. Because if it wasn't for the scribe in Egypt, we would have no idea about hieroglyphics.
Yeah. That's important for Native Blacks just to write about what we experience. Because if we don't tell our history, somebody else gonna tell us what they want to.
Hold on, Shaka, you still there? Hold on. Go back to your thing. I'm gonna make sure. Check 1, check 2.
Keep talking about Native Blacks, like that concept. Like, first of all, what is it? What are you saying? Like, what do you mean when you say Native Black? What does that mean?
I have to say Native Black because I can't necessarily subscribe to the idea that we wasn't here before the Pan-African slave trade. Here in America. Well, how do we know? With all of the bullshit they tell us, how do we know that we wasn't already here? And even if we wasn't, we've been here at least as long as a
Can you hear us now?
first class American.
Yeah.
And that goes right back to the whole Asiatic black man concept.
Okay, how does it connect it for the people?
What's Asiatic? What's that?
Then was we talking about that?
No, Chaka asked the question, what is the Asiatic black man? And
I mean, this is a theory of mine. Like, I think we were talking about it earlier, and that's not something I claim to be up on. So I'm gonna say what it seems to implicate to me is that, I mean, when we look at the way, so if we accept the idea that human life on this planet started on the African continent and then expanded throughout the rest of the world, like just looking at landmass, it's not likely that the first place humans was going to go would have been north into Western Asia, because it's a body of water. The Mediterranean Sea is separating. I've never been there. I haven't explored that area of the planet. But from what I could see on a map, there's no direct landmass that would have allowed people to cross from the African continent into Western Asia.
Well, I mean, you could walk. You could walk.
Sure, but it would have been a lot more feasible to go through what has been Central Asia, what people have started to speak of or call the Middle East. You could just walk and just keep walking, and then eventually you will be all the way on East China.
Now, what we're discussing is, one, trying to prove a myth, because the Asiatic black man, the whole concept came out of Elijah Muhammad's work, with their messenger, the Asiatic black man. We have to understand, once again, when we try to historicalize and bring to fact the idea of the Asiatic black man, we start running into those problems again. And you miss the lesson because you're trying to prove where it all originated. You know what I'm saying? What if everybody popped up at the same goddamn time?
That's always been my theory. I ain't gonna say always, but that's long been a theory of mine. Is that what if all life on the planet, the planet became this thing that was able to sustain life, and life is something that just automatically happened. And in one day, one rotation of the planet, life sprung up in that day, all around the planet. So you see, in that
even when you get into day is a mythic concept. It's you know what I'm saying? It's like, it's
all incumbent on the theory that the Earth has always been spinning at the same speed, always been the same distance from the sun, always been all of these factors that now, and they're changing, they're not constant. That's why we got leap years, and that's why we got all of these, like, even if I'm not going to speak on that, but it's some historical events that happen that aren't necessarily documented in a consistent way, because what it is that makes a year and a day have changed, because it's not constant. That's why we have a leap year, because it's not exact. It's a concept that we're doing our best to make sense out of. So we don't know how 10,000 years ago, because the prevailing theory is that humans have been on this planet. I don't even want to necessarily say prevailing. One of the theories is that human life has been on this planet for at least 100,000 years, or that the development of human life has been taking place over a course of hundreds of thousands of years. So it could have been one of the theories that I have. I'm not even saying it's supported by anybody else. Is that the Earth and the life on this planet came about in an instant, in a moment, or in maybe an instant that took place over whatever period of time, and allowed life to be coming about in different places on the Earth at different times, even though we accept that life came in one place. Vi, Man, and Lucy, and all of these theories that we've been taught. Who knows? Because there's this whole thing called the Out of Africa theory that Freud, all of these people use for the enslavement of people. So we got to question all these theories.
There you go. See, because once again, we're getting into trying, because even when you get to science is about creating myths and proving them. That's all it is. Creating myths and proving them. They just
call it theories in science.
Call it theories, and I mean, when you look at the theory is nothing but a myth that individuals that went out to try to prove. But back in the day, they just used religions to do that shit. We have to be clear on that and stop arguing about the historical aspect of it and start getting the goddamn lesson.
And science is dope, because one of the things about I love the scientific method, because what the scientific method does is it seeks out constants, and it compares constants things. It's something that we can find as a constant, and it compares it to something that we're questioning. So you can never get away from theory,
Yeah,
especially when
questioning. Questioning is at the root of that, and what we have done is eliminated the process of questioning. You know what I'm saying? When you get into the religions and shit, they snuff out the idea of questioning. You understand what I'm saying?
They say just have faith.
Just have faith.
And how do you consider? Because then we get right back to the faith versus knowledge, the creationism versus what's the other one? Evolution. All of those things we have been taught so much that they are opposed to each other. But everything about life, like I'm a physical being, and when I die, everything that you know of Quasi is going to decay. But the essence of me will continue, and the breath of me, I don't know where that goes. You know, I don't even. That's a whole other thing. But it's undeniable that there's two elements that come together, because my mom had an egg and my dad had a sperm, and those two things came together to make me. So it's undeniable that two things that don't necessarily even seem to go together must come together to make something else that doesn't even necessarily make sense. None of this shit makes sense. You know.
I got a question for y'all. And it's a silly question, but it's not really. I'm gonna start off with you, Hot Tim.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you good. Go ahead.
All right. If when you met your wife, she had a tail, would she be your wife today?
Probably not.
You gotta tell her the way and get to.
And if she had a tail, is that some new shit or some old shit?
That would be some old shit.
Quasi.
Go ahead.
I would just say, damn, this is about to be wild. Yo, you know that they say that Western Asians have as much as 15% Neanderthal DNA, and they also say that human life on this planet began on the African continent. So if I put those two things together, then it seems to me that at some point in time, an African human being must have fucked a Neanderthal.
No, well, now I can challenge you. But then we're getting into the arguing theory over getting the lesson. Now, because when we start doing that, we miss the possible commonality that we could extract and once again get the lesson. So what does Neanderthal matter when in our lives now? What does some of this shit matter in our lives now? What is the lesson we can get from that? You know what I'm saying? And so we have to start being able to ask questions that take us to a point where we get the lessons that we could go on, and rather than just continually asking things, being able to accept them as we continue to explore, but yet accomplish some of the things that we need to do in our lives. You know what I'm saying? The Neanderthal has no effect on my life, whether I'm Asiatic black man or African black man, has no bearing on my life. But what is the lessons that my ancestors left me? You know what I'm saying? That I could go and extract some valuable information that can help me make sense of this world.
And this is some phenomenal stuff, man. It's the same question I have about people from India. Like, you know, it's a lot of babies born like on a daily with forearms and you know what I mean. Over in India, they're having babies that are born that are that look like they're deities. right?
Yeah.
And here in Ohio, okay, I don't want to say Ohio specifically, but the whole kale thing, we can compare that to Appalachia as well. Or anytime that there is a culture that are in breeding. But
First we
that's
was
neither
all,
here nor there.
first we was all dead, Shaka. Now you trying to throw necrophilia in with bestiality. This is a genre of porn that's never been created before.
Hey,
You're a pioneer.
Y'all niggas
You're a
nasty.
leader.
And people will watch.
Yeah, people will watch. That's what we living in, man.
Hey, I mean, I probably would at least check it out.
You gotta see it, man.
What the fuck? Turn it off. Okay, leave it on.
Yeah. I'm still scarred from 2 girls in 1 cup.
Oh shit. God damn. But yo, once you introduce some shit, you gotta let it play out.
Right.
Yo,
Yeah.
the time delay is so funny. It's like,
Yeah, I like it.
Y'all missing out. You should have been here.
Fucking with my bedtime, guys.
Yeah, it's late. So we're gonna continue this conversation. I mean, it's not over. We ain't got to talk about everything today. So even to bring it all the way back home, man, we was talking about culture, myth, and fable. So everything that we was talking about is a challenge, is a consideration of what we hold to be true. Like truth and fable, motherfuckers be lying. Everybody be lying. Like the whole man culture, the whole woman culture, dudes lie because we want to fuck who we want to fuck, and we want to continue to fuck who we want to fuck. And women lie. Well, I don't know. I ain't even gonna put no words in y'all's mouth.
It's the same thing.
But y'all motherfuckers be lying too.
It's the same thing.
With y'all fine ass.
It's the same thing. You know
What I got from it is that we gotta rewrite. We gotta write our own history. We gotta create our own myth
narrative, our own narrative.
through the narrative.
Right.
Of today.
And you know what?
That
And
lead
on
our children to what
on
they
that
wanna
note,
do.
hey Quasi, I'm gonna tell you something. I heard this dude talking about, he paralyzed from the waist down. He said, but because of it, I'm a millionaire because I got shot by a cop, right? So he's telling this story, and like the lady's falling in love with him. He like, and my baby's mama, I pay her rent. You know what I mean? So I asked him like, hold on a second, bro, how come you don't own property? He said, I do own property. I own 2 condos and in the flat. I said, okay. And he's like, because my baby mama live in one of them. I said, oh, because when you said you was paying her rent, that's why I asked.
Rent.
He's like, nah, bro. You know what I'm saying?
He told on
He's like,
himself.
nah, bro. He was like, see, and then he had to adjust his story up a little bit, and he felt uncomfortable having to adjust his story, but I wasn't calling him on it like he was lying. I was saying, what do you mean you paying rent? You know what I mean? You're a millionaire. So sometimes, and not just, okay, not to say that I honestly believe him right now because, brothers be capping. They out there, you know what I mean? But when it comes to that slip, it lets you know the difference between somebody that owns and somebody that don't.
Yeah.
It just came out so naturally and from his tongue like, yeah, I'm paying her rent.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
You right.
All right, but hey, family, I am conking out.
I see it happening. I done seen Hatem fall asleep at many hookahs.
Yeah, I'm about to.
I done actually not seen him fall asleep at many hookahs because I fell asleep first.
So, family, I want to thank you, and I want to say you are now listening to Giami Journey Media.
Shout out to everybody else.
It's a Heart of a Simba production, and of course, we're sitting right now with Brother Quasi, hosted by Brother Quasi. Brother Atem is cold and I'm sleepy. And it's a Heart of a Simple production. You do nothing but strive to blow up your old paradigm.
Shout out to everybody that was on the line. I see you figuring out the technicals. I see you. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here. Peace.
Peace out.
Peace.